What they even do to Hecarim? What was the point of it? Okay, I can explain it to you. So essentially, what I did is I identified a problem with Hecarim months ago. 3 months ago, if you guys remember, I made a tweet. And at the time, everyone was saying, oh, look at Doaenel. He's crying on Twitter. He's crying on Twitter. He's saying Hecarim's bad. Ha ha ha. Look at Doaenel. Ha ha, right? And the thing is, what I was making tweets about was the truth. Hecarim had a problem because every champion has a sliding scale of strength, right? Every single champion in League, they have a sliding scale of strength, where champion strength is determined by 2 things, damage and utility. The more utility a champion has, the less damage it's compensated with, and the more damage a champion has, the less utility it's compensated with. Hecarim, years ago, was given a buff to his ult, where they increased the duration of it from 1.5 to 2 seconds. When they did that, what they did was they made his utility so overpowered that after that, they always had to keep nerfing his damage because his utility was just out of whack, right? So what Riot had to do was they had to find a way to nerf his utility while also giving him his damage back, because that's what he's been lacking for the past few months, right? And that's what they did. They made it so they nerfed his ult fear duration. They nerfed his E, right, as well. They incentivized W max and they increased the damage of his Q. What that did is it made it so that now we have Hecarim in a state where he's actually chill, right? We have Hecarim in a state where he has enough damage to 1v9, but he's not completely overloaded with utility. And unironically, this is the thing I'm going to say that not a lot of you are going to agree with, but if you think about it logically, you're going to come to understand. A lot of the time, champions with more damage and less utility are actually harder to pull off than champions with more utility and less damage. And the reason why is because every single champion in the game has a very specific way of doing their damage, whereas utility is just something that you understand how to use, and once you understand how to use utility, you can translate this to every single champion in the game. That's why you don't see a lot of people locking in champions like Kayn when they're strong, if they're LCS junglers, but they're going to be locking in champions like Xin Zhao a lot, because Xin Zhao with his Q, he's more of NSR, he's more utility, whereas Kayn is just all damage. So even though 2 champions can be strong, they both appeal to different demographics. That's another reason why Rengar, a champion without much utility but only damage, has been S tier for a very long time, but he isn't nerfed. Right? And Rek'Sai is this odd fringe case where she has damage as well as utility, but the way she's played is just so different from every other jungler that nobody really wants to do it, right? So that's why Hecarim changes were good, because it focused more on giving the champion damage while nerfing its utility. So all the people who are dog shit at the champion, right, they get shit on, as they should, whereas all the people who are good with the champion, they can actually start pulling it off again. So if you're having problems with Hecarim nowadays, right, it's not fun when I say this, but if you're having problems with Hecarim nowadays, it's because you don't actually have good mechanics on the champion. You don't have the mechanics you need to 1v9 games, and you need to get better. It's as simple as that. So that's why when people come to my channel, they're like, dude, Dantas, Hecarim is so weak and this and that. It's not that he's weak. It's just the fact that you were used to a champion that had focus on utility. And you didn't have to be good on him to do damage. Whereas now you actually have to be good to win games on him and to know what you're doing on him. And that's why you see so many people are struggling and he has such a low win rate. Even on people who have mained the champion for a while. Because I'll tell you guys something crazy. The reason why I'm the best Hecarim, right? The reason why, the real reason, it's not because I'm a Hecarim jungle. It's because in Season 10, I played 3,000 games of lane Hecarim, right? And when I played those 3,000 games of lane Hecarim, what it forced me to do is it forced me to get good mechanics, right? But the thing is, nowadays, you're going to have a lot of people who, they never actually got good mechanics on Hecarim. They don't actually have understanding on maintaining Q stacks. They don't actually know how to go in and out of fights, weave in and out, wait off cooldowns, wait off combos, wait off abilities, use ability rotations to their advantage. They just kind of ult in with no Q stacks, die, and they're like, damn, dude, Hecarim's weak. Fuck you, he's not weak. It's the fact that you're shit, so get better. You guys are going to see when I go to Europe, even if Hecarim is 47 win rate, it's not going to matter. I'm going to get Challenger and I'll be 70 win rate on Hecarim over hundreds of games. Why? Simple. Because I have mechanical understanding of the champion. I know what I'm doing on the champion in a way that nobody else really knows how. because of the amount of games I played him lane and the amount of mechanics I was able to develop through my year of laning with him, right? Whereas most people, they just sit there and they're like, all right, well, if I play Hecarim, I run at enemy, I get a bunch of like gold leads because I get free kills around the map, and then I'm just 20 kills so I can 1v9. But that's not enough anymore. It's not enough to just be 20 kills. Now you actually know, you have to know, how do I use those 20 kills? How do I team fight? How do I use my ult? How do I use my E? When should I just run in? When should I actually just ult in? When should I engage? When should I wait? When should I dive? When should I peel? You need to know all these things. And the thing about me is that since I have, again, so many, like, literally, 10 million points on champion, I know every single instance in which you need to use the champion's kit to its, like, perfect ability for me to maximize the amount of impact I can have in fights and how hard I can 1v9 games. Whereas most people kind of have this one-dimensional style with him, and they don't understand nuance. And understanding that nuance is the difference between a guy who's going to sit there and get 70 win rate to Challenger versus a guy who's going to be stuck 40 win rate in like Platinum or like a Diamond or Masters or whatever it might be, right? It's just all those little nuances that only one tricks really possess. And that's the beauty of it. It's like what Riot did with the changes is they made Hecarim a champ that's one trickable now, right? It's like he's not just a champion where it's like, oh yeah, if he's flavor of the month, like no. Now he's actually one trickable. And even if he's like bad in the meta, because they gave him damage and because they gave him skill expression, you can always overcome the meta. It's almost like, I'll give you an example. Imagine someone tells you, we're going to lock you at the bottom of a well, and we're going to chain you to the fucking floor. You're chained to the floor, right? And you're there, and you're like, okay, do I have any tools? They say no. So you're given no tools, you're chained to the bottom of the floor, and then they start filling the well with water, and you're drowning. And there's nothing you can do because you have nothing to work with. But then it's like they tell you, okay, you know what we'll do? We'll give you 20 pounds of muscle on your frame, so that now, even though you're still chained to the floor, if you have enough strength, you can fucking rip those chains off the fucking floor and you can still survive. That's essentially what they're doing. They're making it so now that even if the champion's in a bad state, he can still be 1v9 with, and he can still, like, actually win the games that he should win, right? With the leads that he gets. And he's not just going to feel completely worthless anymore. That's what it comes down to. So, like, I don't even know what the original question was, but that's a Hecarim rant, you know. How is it OTP if it's permud? Because it's only permud because it was OP for a patch. That's why. W19 does not want to hear this. Well, obviously dogshit Hecarim players aren't going to want to hear this, dude. Not dog shit. Listen, it isn't that they're dog shit. It's the fact that they don't have core understanding of the champion. Like, let me explain it to you. I was at a point with Hecarim where it's like, in last patch, the difference between me and another Hecarim one trick would maybe be 5 points on win rate. Now this patch, me and another challenger Hecarim one trick, there can literally be a point difference of like 15 on win rate. Just because of how different it is. Is Vine Troll and Hecarim or is Eclipse better? Eclipse is better if you're worse. Let me explain it to you. So this is Hecarim player's skill. Okay? And this is like sliding scale. Phase Rush with like Chemtank, Duskblade is here. Conqueror with Eclipse and Divine Sunder is down here. So the more skilled you are, the more you gravitate towards this. The less skilled you are, the more you gravitate towards this.